the added joy that I am able to receive as I stand here and I see my children dancing in the back. And I will share with you the unknown joy that you receive to not see me dancing in the front. Luke chapter 2, let us pick up verse 1. In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria, and everyone went to his own town to register. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and the line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. This is the word of the Lord. As we reflect on Luke chapter 2 for a moment, I'm fairly confident I know this answer, but how many of us have never heard that story before? Okay, so we're familiar with the birth of Jesus Christ. We're familiar with the narrative between Matthew and Luke and how Jesus came into the world. We're familiar with his birth, and even our children maybe have seen that new animated movie from the donkey's perspective. What is that called again? The Star, A Star, A Star, something with a star. It's there. And so we're familiar with the story of Jesus Christ. And so tonight, as we reflect on Jesus' birth, it's not necessarily that we're hearing a new account, for we know the story. But rather what I ask us to do is to try to put ourselves in the shoes of the people that are involved. To try to imagine what they're feeling, what they're going through. And just to attempt to walk a mile in their shoes tonight. And to put ourselves there. And to reflect it and to remember that Joseph was pledged to be married to Mary. They were living in their town of Nazareth. They had their home there. They had their work there. They had their friends there. They had what they needed there, right? And it's likely that as Mary was pregnant, that she would have had people there that she would have confided in. Possibly even her midwife would have been there. And how many ladies in this room have been pregnant before, and you're in your third trimester in pregnancy, and so you very well know that you don't go very far from your primary hospital, right? You don't go on long trips when you're that close to giving birth. And so what's so fascinating about this account is that Joseph and Mary had to leave their home, not because they wanted to, not because it was their choice, but because somebody else, Caesar Augustus, made this decree for them that made them go to Bethlehem. Not that they wanted to, not that she wanted to leave her home behind, her friends behind, but that she had to. And so, if we can try to put ourselves in the shoes of Joseph for a moment, as he's going from his hometown of Nazareth, he's taken the love of his life with him, they're pledged to be married, she's with a child, and they're going to Bethlehem. And they get there, and one can only imagine that they don't have any close relatives that are there, because if they did, it would have been common to have stayed with a relative. It would have been common to have stayed in the home of a relative while they're there. But they don't do that. Rather, they go to an inn to find a place to stay. And as they go to this inn, they're looking for this holiday inn in town where they can just crash for the night. And as they're there, they see this innkeeper. And the innkeeper lets them know, there's no room for you. Everybody's paid up and has a room of their own. We have no space for you. What do you think were the emotions of Joseph in that exchange, in that conversation with the innkeeper? Here he is trying to protect and take care of the love of his life. And he can tell that she is pregnant, and any day now, going to be giving birth to the child, to Jesus. And he knows this. And here he is, in not his hometown, but a new town. And he can't even stay in a place with a roof over his head. He's left to resort to finding a stable so that night, him and his wife, who is pregnant, can sleep next to the livestock. Can you imagine the tension that Joseph and that innkeeper had in that conversation? Can you imagine the feelings of doubt, the feelings of, what do I do now, that Joseph was dealing with? Oftentimes I think we know this story so well that we forget to try to emotionally attach to what is going on with the individuals that we're reading about, that we're studying. Place yourselves with me, if you will, in Mary's shoes. Mary traveling. She's pregnant and she knows that she is so far along that she could be giving birth any day now. She doesn't know what day, but she knows it's soon. She knows it's close. And she's in a new town. She knows that she's not close to her doctors at this point. She knows that she's not close to her relatives. She knows she can't run over to Elizabeth for help at this point. She's in a new town. There's no room for her in the inn. She finds herself that night sleeping in a stable next to cattle. How romantic that would be, right? The honeymoon they always wanted. Sleeping in a stable next to the livestock. And you got to be thinking, in Mary's mind, she knows Joseph well enough to know that he is a man in his young age that has likely never delivered a baby before. I'm pretty sure that didn't bring much comfort to Mary in that moment. To know when the labor pain struck her that there was no midwife around to go calling to. What was going on in her head at that time? What were those emotions that were running through Mary to know that she was giving birth to Jesus and there were cattle all around her and that Joseph would be the one delivering